The heavy thud of dirt striking the coffin reverberated through the overcast air. I stood there, a somber observer, while the minister's comforting words tried to console those grieving. My daughter clung to my hand, her husband just behind us, his hand resting on my shoulder in a silent gesture of support. Beside me, my son stood with his girlfriend. At 49, I never imagined I'd be at my wife's graveside. Deep down, I always thought I'd go first, given my job and lifestyle. I pictured myself as an old man when my time came, but now I felt ancient. After the funeral, we had a reception. People approached me, offering their condolences, praising my wife and reminiscing about how wonderful she was. Yet no one said what I truly needed to hear. We had been married for over 20 years, had 2 kids who were now living their own lives. Our youngest, my daughter, is married and expecting my first grandchild. My son works in New York City's financial district. Both are thriving. With so many people at the house, my house now, I struggled with the concept of being single. Everything had been ours for the past 20 years, not mine. Around 40 people were gathered, talking and showing their support. All I wanted was solitude. Feeling overwhelmed, I slipped into the backyard, making my way to the back gate for a short walk. Just as I closed the gate, a car pulled up in the alley and parked beside me. It was Olivia, my wife's younger sister, the last person I wanted to see. In many ways, she was partly to blame for my wife's absence. If Olivia had minded her own business, Sophia would still be here. I told Olivia I was going for a walk and that everyone was inside talking about her. I didn't smile or invite her, just stated the facts. I needed to get away, certain she'd try to join me. I should have known better. She brushed past me and went into the backyard. Olivia had always been self-centered. Her sudden interest in Sophia's life made me suspicious. It wasn't like her. I sighed, relieved to be rid of her for the moment. There was a rift between us, an insurmountable chasm. Family or not, Olivia was unwelcome in my life. It's a long story about how everything led to today's funeral. Life moves on, unrelenting like a river. All right, here's my story. This is how my life unfolded. Sophia and I met after college at her workplace, an insurance company, where I went to renew my house and car policies. She was my assigned agent. After our initial meeting, I found excuses to return and eventually gathered the courage to ask her out. A few months of dating revealed our deep love for each other, and we decided to marry. We had 2 children, and our marriage was wonderful until 2 years ago. I never doubted marrying Sophia. We were incredibly compatible. Then Olivia started poking into Sophia's life. I think she meant well, believing Sophia needed to grow as a person and be more loving. Olivia tried hard to help Sophia with what she saw as flaws. It started with Wednesday night outings, expanding to Fridays. Soon, Olivia spent more time with Sophia than I did, monopolizing her evenings when I'd normally be home. It quickly became all about Olivia. When it turned into a daily thing, I withdrew from Sophia. Every attempt to spend time with her was thwarted by Olivia's presence. Whenever I wanted to be with Sophia or planned a dinner, what was once an open and communicative relationship became stifled. I couldn't express my feelings without Sophia getting upset, accusing me of being harsh on her sister. If trying to be with my wife only caused trouble, why bother? Months passed, and girls' nights out took over our lives. I saw our marriage crumbling but couldn't talk to Sophia without her getting defensive. So I did the worst thing. I gave up. I buried myself in my interests while Sophia did her own thing. On rare nights at home, we felt like strangers. One night, or rather early morning, everything fell apart. The night before, I was in the garage working on a project while Sophia and Olivia were out as usual. They left around 6:30, and I made my own dinner, eating in the garage. I worked until 11 and went inside, expecting Sophia to be in bed. But she wasn't home yet. The phone's flashing light indicated a message. Sophia's voice said she was staying at Olivia's because she couldn't drive home and would see me in the morning. I thought, why bother? I never see you anyway. Just move in with your sister and be happy. I was angry and jealous. I missed our conversations, laughter, and playful moments. After replaying and deleting the voicemail, I felt more alone than ever. When I called my wife's phone, I overheard men's voices in the background at Olivia's house, sounding like a lively party. After 9 rings, a man answered, making a snide remark about my money and advising me not to waste it. I demanded to speak to Sophia, but he casually mentioned she was busy and suggested I call back around noon the next day. He even had the audacity to call himself her husband before abruptly hanging up on me. Enraged, I redialed repeatedly over the next half hour, but no one answered. After the third attempt and growing angrier by the minute, I grabbed my car keys and stormed out, driving straight to Olivia's house. When I arrived, the place was deserted. I realized I had called Sophia's cell phone, not Olivia's landline. I had no clue where she was or who she was with. Panic and anger intertwined as I thought about whether she was there by choice or something more sinister had occurred. I returned home more furious and scared than ever. I poured myself a stiff drink, trying to make sense of it all. My mind played cruel tricks, suggesting Sophia might have willingly invited those men. The alcohol only fueled my paranoia and despair. By morning, I woke with a splitting headache and a dry mouth. After a shower and some aspirin, I looked in the mirror and saw a man who was utterly lost. I forced down a light breakfast, anxiously waiting for a call or for Sophia to return. Around 2 p.m., Sophia pulled into the driveway looking stunning in one of my favorite dresses, slinky, tight-fitting, showing plenty of leg and a hint of cleavage. She had only worn it on special occasions with me, and even then, only if she intended for a late night. She breezed in, explaining she hadn't come home because she and Olivia had too many drinks, and she was too tired to drive. She claimed she had crashed at Olivia's, slept in, showered, and now she was back. But her carefree attitude only made my blood boil. Seeing my obvious distress, she asked what was wrong. I told her I had called her phone multiple times the previous night. The first call was answered by a man who said she was occupied and claimed to be her husband before hanging up on me. No one answered my subsequent calls. Looking at her in that dress, I couldn't shake the suspicion that she had worn it for someone else, especially since when I checked, Olivia's house was dark and empty. Sophia took a seat, but missed the chair, collapsing onto the floor, her face turning pale as she processed what I was saying. She remained there, motionless, hands covering her face, tears streaming down. Her reaction told me everything. She had done something she deeply regretted. Unable to handle it any longer, I stormed out to the garage, locking the door behind me and blasting the stereo. I spent the next few hours in a rage, smashing things and cursing Olivia, Sophia, and the man who answered her phone. When I finally cooled off and turned off the music, the reality of my crumbling marriage hit me. Olivia's meddling had driven a wedge between Sophia and me, and now it seemed Sophia was seeking solace elsewhere, possibly with another man, or worse, several men. I realized I might have lost Sophia for good, and divorce seemed inevitable. When I returned to the house, it was empty. Assuming Sophia had gone to Olivia's, I was shocked to find her dresser drawers open and empty. The closet was nearly bare. She had left me. Since it was Sunday, I turned to online banking to protect my finances in case Sophia made her departure permanent. I wasn't about to let years of hard-earned savings slip away. I contacted a friend who had gone through a divorce, setting up a meeting to discuss my situation. I also told our kids about the strange events, admitting I didn't know where their mother was. A week passed and I threw myself into work to avoid thinking about my disintegrating home life. Each night, I drank and slept fitfully, barely managing to shower and get to work each morning. It had been a week since I last saw Sophia. When I finally met with my friend, his advice was what I expected: protect your assets and figure out Sophia's intentions. Sophia remained silent all week, with no calls or visits. By Saturday night, I was convinced she had left me for another man. I decided to call Olivia's house. Olivia was shocked to hear that Sophia wasn't with me. She assumed Sophia was still upset and staying close to home. I informed her that Sophia hadn't been home at all, and that she might be with the man who answered her phone. Olivia argued it was unfair to blame her, but I firmly told her that her constant interference had ruined my marriage. Her girls' nights out had driven a wedge between Sophia and me, and now I was certain Sophia was gone for good, likely with another man. Olivia was caught off guard when I mentioned I knew about last Friday night. She admitted that on Saturday afternoon, Sophia showed up at her house in what she called her want-to-get-laid dress, freshly showered. Olivia said she told Sophia about a strange man answering her phone, which made Sophia cry. Later, when Olivia came back from the garage, she found Sophia had packed her things and left. Olivia concluded by saying her actions had cost me my wife and warned Sophia to stay away from me. Despite Sophia's pleas, I couldn't listen because my anger was too intense. I wanted to shut everything out, her, Sophia, the other man, and life in general. Furious didn't even begin to describe my feelings. Just hearing Olivia's voice reignited my rage. I was lost and my wife was gone, with no way to fix our relationship. After a heated phone call, I slammed the phone down so hard that I broke it, adding a new phone to my list of problems. It took a while before I found the energy to get up and go to bed, realizing I had been sitting in the same spot where Sophia had collapsed on me not long ago. By morning, I knew I'd come out on the losing end and would have been better off staying up all night drinking. A dreary Sunday morning greeted me, and I was in no mood to deal with anyone. Around noon, I heard a car pull up in the driveway. Looking out the window, I saw my son getting out. He asked what had happened, mentioning that Mom came to his place a week ago, upset and crying, but wouldn't tell him anything except that I was going to leave her. He wanted to know what was going on. I told him we were having problems, and that she had left me, packed her things, and this was the first time I knew where she had been. He said it was embarrassing because he had a friend over, and she spent the night at his place. He asked when she showed up at my place. I told him it was on Sunday after he called and talked to me. She refused to let me call him and talk to him, fearing he would hunt her down. He questioned if I was going to hurt her. I explained that I was exhausted after a week of worry and stress like never before. My son had to drive over 300 miles on a Sunday to ask what was going on and why his mom was at his place, refusing to let him talk to me. Last week she went out with Aunt Olivia. Mom told him about that. She ended up missing my call, and somehow I got really angry about it. He asked why I got so mad. I explained that she missed my call, and that's what she told him. But she mentioned someone else intercepted the call before she knew about it, and I got really mad. She was scared, so she ran. He noted that she left out some important details and asked me to explain what happened. I recounted that last Friday night. Mom went out with Aunt Olivia as usual. I was in the garage working on a few things and came in around 11, only to find Mom wasn't home yet. She had left a message saying she had too much to drink and was going to stay at Olivia's. My son acknowledged that Mom told him about the message part. He said when she left the message, he replayed it to make sure he understood it correctly, noting that I often did that. He replayed it and heard men's voices in the background, which worried him. So he called Mom's cell phone, and a strange guy picked up after 9 rings. He asked to speak to her, but the guy said she was tied up and to call back tomorrow afternoon. He identified himself as her husband, but the guy hung up after telling him to duck off. I realized that Mom had sugarcoated that part. He asked if Mom had cheated on me, and I admitted I wasn't sure. She left before we could talk about it, but she seemed guilty of something. I hadn't spoken to her since Saturday afternoon. He suggested we needed to talk and proposed we go over to his place to discuss things. He assured us that he and his new girlfriend would be there to support us. I agreed, and he emphasized we should come as we are, without weapons. He recognized my anger, but urged us to work things out and not let this situation fester. He offered to follow me home, and I considered riding with him in case things didn't work out at his place. He assured me he would make sure I got home okay. During the drive to my son's place, I realized I still had some love for Sophia, even if she had cheated on me. At that moment, I was willing to try to work things out with her. When we arrived at James' place, he parked and we went inside. His girlfriend was sitting with Sophia. When I walked in, they both stood up looking nervous. She greeted me, asking how I had been. I felt the anger boiling inside me and barely managed to control it. I yelled at her, accusing her of cheating, and saw her shrinking from me. I had to pause and catch myself, apologizing for my outburst. I admitted I had been drinking too much and feeling confused about everything. She looked pale and nervous. The woman I loved, the woman I had spent most of my life with, was afraid of me. That hurt me deeply. My heart was breaking. I loved her still, and she was afraid of me. I wondered if we could patch things up. A young woman, presumably the guest, interjected, introducing herself as Samantha. She expressed a wish that we could have met under better circumstances. I took her offered hand and shook it gently, responding that I shared the same sentiment and hoped we could get to know each other more. Although James hadn't mentioned seeing anyone yet, I glanced knowingly at him, conveying a slight reprimand with my eyes. Samantha urged us to talk while she and James stayed in the other room, ready to intervene if things got difficult. They emphasized the need for us to keep our cool due to the thin walls and floors in the apartment building. After James and Samantha left, Sophia began to explain herself, starting with an apology. I interrupted her, asking if she had something specific to be sorry about, and if she had slept with another man. She hesitated, then admitted it was more complicated than that. I pressed for details, and what she revealed left me speechless. Sophia confessed that she had been with multiple men that night, and I was stunned. This was not the woman I had married. She tried to explain, saying she had been drunk and Olivia had been urging her to go out for weeks. She didn't fully understand how it all happened, but she ended up in bed with 2 men, and by the end of the night, she had been with all of them, including Olivia. Olivia had orchestrated the whole thing, making sure Sophia didn't see it as coercion. She was so drunk she didn't think about the consequences until it was too late. Her confession hit me like a ton of bricks. I had suspected she might have cheated, but this was beyond anything I could have imagined. To think my wife and Olivia, her sister, had been involved in such a situation was too much to bear. I sat there, unable to find the words. Sophia wasn't hiding anything. She was spilling everything, and it was tearing me apart. She read my silence as a cue to continue, saying she didn't remember her wedding vows or me waiting at home. At one point, she even found herself begging for more. She called herself a terrible person who didn't deserve me or to live. Her sobs took over and she collapsed. I just watched, feeling detached from the woman I thought I knew. My shock turned to nausea, and I had to leave the room to throw up. After calming down, I managed to drink some water and return to the table, where Sophia was still crying. I wanted to comfort her, but I didn't know if I could ever touch her again. I sat down, trying to find something to say or ask without getting sick again. She insisted that the nights out with Olivia weren't meant for finding men, and that this had never happened before. They had gone to a new club, and she had drunk too much. The men there bought them drinks, danced with them, and made her feel attractive and carefree. She called me, left a message, and then went to their place. I cut her off, expressing my frustration. I told her she hadn't been paying attention to me lately, and blamed her and Olivia for not letting me in. I reminded her how I had tried to get her to go out with me, but she always chose Olivia. I accused her of lying to me, since her message said she was at Olivia's place. She clarified, saying they initially planned to go to Olivia's, but ended up at the men's place first. She thought it wouldn't be a problem, but got caught in a regrettable situation. Sophia tried to blame me for not paying more attention to her, but I lost my patience. I raised my voice, pointing out how she ignored me and went out with Olivia every chance she got. I accused her of pushing me out of her life. She finally admitted that she hadn't realized how much she was ignoring me, and acknowledged that her constant outings with Olivia had driven a wedge between us. I asked if she enjoyed being in those situations, referring to her as a scarlet woman. She denied ever calling me that or treating me like one. She admitted that she enjoyed the new experiences with those men, things she had wanted to try with me but couldn't ask. She regretted losing herself and me in the process. She hated that she had shared intimate acts with others that should have been reserved for me. I told her I wasn't sure if we could move past this, but there might be a chance. She grabbed onto that hope, promising to do anything to stay with me and be a better wife. She vowed not to go out unless I was with her, and committed to being a stay-at-home wife. I remained skeptical, questioning her sudden change and whether she would revert to her old ways once things settled down. I emphasized how Olivia had driven a wedge between us and expressed my discontent. I told her I hadn't realized how much she had been ignoring and avoiding me. I made it clear that things wouldn't be simple moving forward. She had cheated on me, and it had taken an emotional toll. I asked about her involvement with other men, emphasizing the damage it had done to us. I confronted Sophia about her deception, questioning if she would have kept up the lie about staying with Olivia if I hadn't found out. My anger was boiling over, and she could see it in my eyes as my voice grew louder. Just then, James and Samantha entered the kitchen quietly. My son suggested we take a break, proposing that either he and I or Samantha and I go for a walk. Samantha gently took my arm, guiding me out of my chair with a firm grip that belied her strength. She suggested we walk and talk, giving James and Sophia some privacy to discuss things. I agreed, realizing that stepping away was the best option to prevent an outburst. The thought of what could have happened if I lost control haunted me as we left the house. As we strolled around the neighborhood, Samantha initiated the conversation, acknowledging my anger. She told me that Sophia was genuinely remorseful about what she had done, and that she had been plagued by guilt. Samantha had talked with Sophia while James fetched me, and she wanted to share Sophia's regret with me. I listened, processing the information. Eventually, I expressed my frustration and highlighted Sophia's significant mistakes. I pointed out how much time Sophia had spent with her sister Olivia, time that should have been ours. The revelation of their drunken escapade fueled my resentment, and I felt a deep sense of betrayal. Samantha then shared a personal story about her own family. A few years ago, her mother had gone out with friends and ended up involved with another man. Samantha had been worried about her father's reaction, but was relieved when her parents managed to work things out. She clarified that this didn't necessarily mean they stayed married, but showed that resolution was possible. Samantha emphasized that Sophia's mistake was serious and multi-layered. Despite this, she believed Sophia still loved me and hadn't completely cast me aside. According to Samantha, Sophia had made a grave error and found herself in a situation that spiraled out of control. She attributed such situations to the influence of alcohol, lowered inhibitions, peer pressure, and unintended consequences. As we walked and talked, I shared my perspective on the situation. While Sophia had strayed, I had remained faithful. I also highlighted the negative impact of Olivia frequently visiting and taking Sophia away from me. Samantha's soothing voice helped calm my anger. Reflecting on the uncertain future of my relationship with Sophia, I admitted to feeling torn apart inside. Despite my attempts to sound optimistic, I couldn't shake the emotional turmoil. Part of my struggle was understanding how Sophia found herself in such a compromising situation. Suppressing my anger, I tried to maintain composure, knowing that rising above righteous indignation was necessary. Samantha encouraged me to ask any questions I had. Despite my efforts to lift my mood, the emotional burden remained. Samantha inquired about the state of our relationship before Olivia's frequent visits. I explained that despite the natural ebb and flow of our 20-year marriage, I believed we were doing fine, perhaps even better than many couples. Samantha asked if I used to take Sophia out often. I admitted that I might have taken her for granted and that Olivia's constant presence had driven a wedge between us. Whenever I tried to spend time with Sophia, Olivia would interfere, causing Sophia to refuse or get upset. I expressed my frustration, calling Olivia a meddling influence. Samantha probed deeper, asking about the romantic aspects of our relationship. I confessed that after so many years together, I had assumed the effort to maintain romance was no longer necessary. Samantha emphasized the importance of keeping romance alive, distinguishing it from mere physical relationships. I acknowledged this oversight and regretted not putting in more effort to make Sophia feel special. Samantha's guidance made me realize that being more romantic could have made a difference. However, Sophia's time with Olivia had already taken away our chance for equal time together. Samantha pointed out that our biggest fights revolved around Sophia and Olivia's nights out, emphasizing that Sophia seemed more focused on her sister than on our marriage. She suggested that our drift was evident and that better communication and understanding might have prevented the current crisis. I expressed frustration, wondering if Samantha was siding with Sophia, but she reassured me that it wasn't about blame. Samantha acknowledged that Sophia needed something she wasn't getting from me, and if we had addressed those issues earlier, the crisis might have been averted. I defended my efforts, stating that I never considered cheating, despite my frustrations with Sophia's time spent with Olivia. Samantha urged me to talk to Sophia directly, advising a calm and straightforward approach. She reminded me that James thought highly of me and emphasized that divorce might not be the solution. Encouraging open communication, Samantha suggested that resolving our issues through conversation could rekindle our love and help us move past the recent challenges. Update: I wished I had the confidence Samantha displayed. She seemed so knowledgeable, probably having learned from her parents' past troubles. Back at James's place, Sophia was sitting there, composed and waiting for our conversation. I confronted her about the state of our relationship, expressing my uncertainty about where we stood. Sophia admitted she wanted to be with me, but acknowledged that my acceptance was uncertain after her betrayal. She apologized sincerely, stressing that apologies couldn't undo what had happened and that we needed to address the issue head-on. I told her how much I struggled not only with the act of cheating, but also with the circumstances involving multiple individuals, especially her sister. I shared the pain of trying to win her back while she was unresponsive, only for her to seek reconciliation after being with others. Sophia regretted her actions, claiming it was never her intention to cheat and blaming the influence of alcohol. I questioned if there was still room for me in her life, expressing concerns about the impact of her choices on our relationship. Our conversation left us both grappling with the complexities of trust, forgiveness, and the potential for rebuilding our connection. Sophia pleaded with me to avoid saying certain things, expressing her love for me and admitting her severe mistake. She acknowledged that she couldn't undo that terrible night, but hoped for forgiveness and trust in the future. Sophia suggested a trial separation, recognizing our uncertainties about the way forward. As she spoke, a tear welled up in her eye, showing her preparedness for my potential decision. I felt torn between satisfaction at seeing her pain and a deep love and desire not to lose her. Sophia said she would understand if I chose divorce, recognizing her lack of excuses. She reluctantly agreed to a trial separation if that's what I thought we needed. Samantha intervened forcefully, cautioning against a trial separation that could lead to a swift divorce. Drawing from her parents' experience, she suggested we face the mistake together, proposing separation within the same house to encourage communication and working through the issues rather than drifting further apart. I remained silent, taking in Samantha's perspective. Her authoritative tone resonated with some truth. I acknowledged her point but struggled with my conflicting thoughts and feelings. Could I let Sophia back into my house? Could I resist the urge to lash out over the next few weeks or months? Could I ever cope with all that had happened? Samantha's voice broke the silence as she addressed me and James, expressing concern about the situation. James joined in, questioning what was happening and awaiting a response. I admitted to feeling a significant amount of rage over the situation. Samantha and James understood my emotions, and Samantha emphasized the importance of staying together to work through our issues. She insisted that staying together and facing the challenges was the only way to find out if we could make it work. I contemplated Samantha's words, considering the realistic alternatives. Expressing my doubts, I found it challenging to believe that staying with Sophia and working through our issues was the right solution. The lingering anger raised concerns about the potential for physical harm if we were together. I was aware of the toll our separation had taken on both of us over the past week, and I didn't want us to become another statistic. Addressing James and Samantha, I expressed my displeasure with feeling pressured into a decision. I made it clear that I wouldn't make such a crucial choice under duress. Instead, I requested that James take me to a motel for the time being, promising to communicate my decision the next morning after having some time to reflect on the situation. Update. When I returned the next morning in a cab, Sophia was still sitting in the same place. James and Samantha had noticeably more somber expressions than the previous day. It was evident that none of them had slept. I knew I had to give them my answer. I suggested to Sophia that she should return home, assuring her that I would make an effort not to harm her physically. However, I acknowledged the likelihood of occasional outbursts of anger and emphasized the need to be together to address our issues. I proposed a temporary arrangement where we would stay in separate bedrooms, physically apart yet trying to work through our challenges. I made it clear that I couldn't guarantee anything beyond that. Sophia sat there, tears running down her face. She looked both happy about the possibility of reconciliation and apprehensive, likely fearing what might happen if I got violent. I could see that concern in her eyes. I probably had the same worried look on my face. Trust is crucial in a marriage, and ours had evaporated. The road ahead was going to be long and difficult. Sophia suggested counseling, something that had crossed my mind back when her nights out with Olivia began straining our relationship. I agreed, recognizing the necessity for both individual and joint counseling. Sophia left the kitchen briefly and returned with her suitcases packed. My son James asked if we could go home. I mentioned that my car was in a nearby parking garage. James offered to fetch it, and Samantha volunteered to drive us. Then, James dropped a bombshell. He had proposed to Samantha last Saturday night, and she had accepted. I congratulated them and welcomed Samantha into the family, wishing them happiness regardless of what happened between Sophia and me. The drive home was tense and silent, each of us lost in thought. The next week was much the same, with tension growing thicker by the day. Our first counseling appointment was scheduled for the following week, and I wasn't sure we'd make it. We did, but barely. We continued with the sessions, once a week for 8 months, with additional individual visits. It wasn't easy, but we managed to navigate through the turmoil. One day, Sophia came home from the doctor looking deeply troubled. I sensed something was seriously wrong, but she hesitated to share the news. Eventually, she went for a walk alone. When she returned, she sat me down in the living room and said, "Kevin, I have some bad news." I asked what it was, already fearing the worst. Sophia had never been one to talk about her problems, even with doctors. She broke down crying. "I'm sick, Kevin, really sick. They said I have cancer." She explained that it had started in her ovaries and spread, and unfortunately, it wasn't caught in time. She struggled to finish her sentence. "They don't think." I felt numb. Sophia reassured me that we would fight this cancer together, that there were treatments, and we would win this battle. I tried to comfort her, but every word I said brought more tears. As time passed, I began to doubt if she really believed we could beat it. "It's beyond fixing, Kevin," she said one day. "I saw a specialist today. He ran some tests and broke the news. The cancer has spread to my lymph glands, liver, and maybe even my brain." Tearfully, she said, "I don't want to die, Kevin. I love you so much. I wasted so much time with Olivia and ignored the symptoms. It's my fault. I wanted to be there for Olivia because I thought she needed me. Now it's too late. I only have a few months left. I'm so sorry, Kevin." I held her close and said, "Sophia, I'm the one who's sorry. What can I do for you now?" She replied, "Just hold me, Kevin. Love me and hold me. That's all anyone can do for me now." So I did. We faced this new challenge together, putting aside our past anger and pain. Despite everything, we had generally been a happy couple, and I tried to keep a positive attitude for her sake. At some point, we thought the treatments might be working, but it turned out they weren't. Sophia outlasted the doctor's original estimate by a few months. When she passed away, she had her children and me by her side. This experience left me with a deep-seated issue with Olivia. I question if I am being unfair, if I should just forgive and forget. But it's difficult because Olivia led Sophia into a spiral of pain and suffering that robbed us of precious time together. Nearly a whole year was wasted, a year that could have been spent loving each other instead of struggling to overcome Sophia's mistake. I can't help but wonder if the cancer could have been caught earlier. I'll always wonder about that.